You're listening to Win-Win, an entrepreneurial community with your host, Ben Wolf.
And welcome to Win-Win, an entrepreneurial community. I am, as always, your host, Ben Wolf. We're going to be learning from our guest today how to reduce your ad spend and increase your website's organic traffic, especially during this time where money is tight, using SEO. And I invite everybody, as always, to subscribe, leave a review wherever you are listening to this or watching this. If you're watching the video, which we're trying again for the first time in a while now. And so with that, I want to get into introducing our guest today. He is the CEO, lead strategist, and co-owner of eWeb Results, a marketing agency. He's the author of Build Your Brand Mania, How to Transform Yourself into an Authoritative Brand that will attract your ideal customers. I'm going to put the link to that on Amazon in the description. He's the co-host of the #1 SEO-focused podcast, the SEO Podcast, creatively named. I'll put the link to their website also in the description. He is a popular speaker in the Houston, Texas area, where I have a lot of family. You can find out more about him at his website, ewebresults.com. That's ewebresults.com. And with that, I give you Matt Bertram. Welcome, Matt.
Awesome, Ben. Thanks so much for having me.
I appreciate you coming on. Yeah, go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, just excited to talk about SEO. I think through all this COVID stuff, people just now I'm starting to see are getting interested in it again. I think everybody was in kind of like hunker down mode for quite a while. So I'm excited to start talking about this again because I love it. So
yeah, it's hopefully we're starting to look at the other side of this thing, and so with that, I guess just if you would, I think it would be helpful. I'm sure most interviews you do start off this way, but I think it would be helpful to give people who are listening or watching a context to where you're coming from, like why you're able to speak about this and how you got into this. So if you don't mind giving like a quick 2-minute history, just a little background to how you got into SEO and into what you're going to be talking about today.
Okay. Yeah. I'll try to do a abbreviated origin story here. I mean, I think really, from the 2000s, my mom was one of the first employees at Microsoft. And so the .com boom, I was pretty young, but I saw it happen. And I was very interested in websites and building websites when, moving GIFs were a thing. Now we were trying to figure out how to put a moving GIF on a website. It was a little difficult, but like moving GIFs everywhere. And, I've just always kind of enjoyed technology and the internet. And so I've kind of stayed with it. I've built and sold a couple companies, some successfully, some unsuccessfully. But what I can tell you, the common theme of every single company that I've built is it needs marketing, and it needs specifically online marketing. Even with COVID, I think that your digital presence is more important than ever. And so as I was kind of building these companies, a lot of the technology, a lot of the ways that people were doing things were kind of old, in my opinion, old school, right? Mm-hmm. And I was like, we can use technology to be more efficient. Like email automation was really kind of where I started it, and being able to send mass emails to people based on lists, and then people responding to those emails and engaging was just something that was brand new to me. And that was when people were actually reading emails. Now, like, it's been kind of overdone, and people don't look at the email open rates are not as high, and people don't spend as much time. But bottom line is, I just kind of gravitated more and more towards digital marketing. Mm-hmm. And I there was a point for me too that I was like, to really know this stuff, to really be able to do this stuff, I have to commit to it full time, right? And mm-hmm. So I committed to it full time. I was reading about a book a week. I read everything I could get my hands on. There's a book out there called The Art of SEO. It's kind of a big staple book. It's 900 pages. Wow. That's all highlighted up. That's kind of like the textbook. But basically read a lot, loved it, started working with clients. And then, within the agency, I've worked my way up to being a part-time owner and digital strategist of the company. Been doing that a long time. And so, yeah, so that's kind of the background, and really, as we go through the podcast, hopefully I'll provide some case studies of how I understand the algorithm, and how we can do certain things to move the needle, is pretty impactful. And why I can say SEO is just so valuable is based on campaigns that I've run in all industries, multi-channel, radio, paid advertising, what have you. SEO has by far the greatest return over time, and it's a fantastic investment, and it is quite complicated. So if you do it right, there's actually not a lot of competition. Like, people think that there's a lot of competition, but it's because it depends on what level you're competing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I hear what you're saying, and I do want to get into all of that stuff that you're talking about. And I guess one thing that I'm thinking about with this, and why I really invited you on, is that, especially with revenue being down for so many people, they're looking for ways that they can decrease their ad spend, but hopefully without decreasing the number of qualified leads that they're getting in. So maybe they're thinking of investing in getting better organic results. So, with that, if you could just maybe give a little deeper dive than you did in that introduction, like, what exactly is SEO, and why does it matter?
Okay, so SEO is really online PR, right? And when people talk about reputation management online is very similar. It's getting certain things to outrank other things that you kind of push down on the kind of second page. There's a joke out there of, like, where do you hide a dead body? It's like the second page of Google kind of thing, right?
Okay.
But so really the first page matters. There's some studies and data out there that suggest that even kind of the top 5 positions is really where you want to be, and where the lion's share of the traffic is. But SEO is online PR. It's online visibility. It's basically, hey, you have a good product or service, you want people to know about it, and they're searching for that product or service. That's how you get found, right? It's extremely powerful, because the lifeblood of any new business is new leads, right? Like that really is the key to growth. Retention's important on the back end, but new leads coming in is so important. So whether it be the maps, which there's map SEO or G&B SEO, which if you're a location or a restaurant or something like that, where location's important. And then there's regular SEO in the larger search engine, and then SEO is branched out to, like, visibility, right? That's what I think it ties to: visibility in YouTube, or visibility in LinkedIn. So it's like LinkedIn SEO or YouTube SEO or Facebook SEO. And there's all these things that kind of play into the broader scope of SEO. But why is SEO important? Going back to, like, it being an investment, and also, like, when money's tight. So here's really the story I can give you. So a lot of our clients going into COVID had to cut budget, right? So they typically cut employees first, right? And then the second thing they cut, right? And then the second thing is the marketing budget. And what I can tell you is, if you're doing paid ads, right, and you have a good ratio, but of like what you're spending to what you're making, that's great, and you can scale up quickly. And a lot of agencies offer that service. I haven't found that to be consistent, because you grab demand, you pull it forward, but also you're always having to feed the beast. So your acquisition cost of a new customer is so much higher. So SEO, you got to look at it as an investment. I really, we encourage our clients 6 months or 12-month investment. So what I can tell you is, the clients that have been with us for a year to a couple years, they turned off their marketing with us. Their SEO is an investment. They stuck. If you turn the ads off, you're gone. Like, you're not visible anymore.
Right.
They've stuck on the first page. And SEO also, as the internet ages, as the domain ages, it gets stronger. The links that are drive to your company, those get stronger. So SEO is a compounding effect that builds and builds and builds. Yeah. And so if somebody's not, and it's all comparative, it's depending on what other people are doing. So basically,
could you compare it, like, what I would spend with my company somebody listening would spend with their company on SEO versus paid ads and the results? Like, can you compare, or like, cost per acquisition? Like,
Uh, yeah, I mean, I think that I would say that SEO, 10x return on paid ads, like pretty across the board. But
pretty
again,
aggressive. I mean, that's
but the variables are right. The industry, the competitiveness, the location, the person that's at the helm managing it, right? Like if they're bad at paid ads and they're good at SEO, or they're good at SEO and they're like, you know what I mean? Like the ratio, like it's hard to compare apples and apples, but I can tell you on campaigns that we run, I mean, I can get 1,000% return on PPC. And we actually just applied for a American Marketing Association award for a PPC campaign that they came to us with about $66,000 in ad spend. We got them down to 30 and almost the same amount of leads, right? And
Wow.
and there was, their customer acquisition cost was still good on their old campaign. We were just able to squeeze more juice out of the lemon, right? So again, it's hard to compare that, but what I can tell you where the investment comes in is going back to the kind of the analogy or the story of people during COVID shut off their marketing budget. Does that make sense? So if that's, 3,500, $5,000, 10 grand, whatever it is, they stop spending. It's kind of like a glider that's gliding on air, right? So it's gliding up and it kind of hangs there for a while. And again, it's relative to what everyone else is doing and how people are interacting on your page. Then it will start to glide down. So I have a law firm that actually recently contacted me to do some more work. You asked me for examples. This was about 2 years ago. No, a year and a half ago, something like that. They came to me. We did 6 months. It was actually bankruptcy in like Phoenix, Tempe, Arizona. And it's a huge.
I actually used to be a bankruptcy attorney. So.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. So basically, bankruptcy lawyer, bankruptcy attorney, right? Those were like the words we were looking for.
Yeah.
And then in the locations of Tempe and then Phoenix, 6 months campaign. Okay, they had done everything old school way through referrals and all that kind of thing. And so they're like, we need to generate leads. They had an in-house marketing department. I mean, this is a big firm, and they're like, hey, you need to get us. If you can get us leads here, then we can go to other verticals, right? So this was kind of a 6-month test run to use us. We ranked them first within 120, 130 days. Okay, so so we had 2 months left, and we kept pushing it, right? Because once you get there and ring the bell, you got to kind of like do some things to stay there, kind of like an incumbent. So we did a 6-month campaign for them. It wasn't that competitive in Tempe. I think they stayed in the top 3 positions for over a year after they stopped paying, right? But to be in the first position and spend whatever it is on AdWords for bankruptcy attorney, I think it's like $110 a click, or maybe like $70 a click, somewhere in that range. It just depends on, like here in Houston, it's like 160, 190, like it's crazy. But yeah, but it's all based upon competitiveness and geographic area, but it wasn't as competitive there. But imagine that, right? So you're spending that, say you have an ad spend budget plus management, $5,000 a month, $5,000 times 12, right? That's your cost savings. And so they recently reached out to me to do some more SEO, but the reason they couldn't keep going, this is the funniest story. This is like the kind of the punchline of it all, is their phone started ringing off the hook to the point that they couldn't manage the calls.
Right.
Okay. Like, I don't know, I'm serious. They couldn't manage the calls, and they go, we would like to, they were like, we would like to continue, but we can't
handle the business.
We can't handle it.
Tell them to call me. I'm an EOS implementer. I help companies, be able to scale up more effectively. People can call me, wolfsedgeconsulting.com about that. But it's they should have used me. Then they could have handled the extra business.
Well, and that actually is about 2.5, 3 years ago, we started getting really, really selective of the clients we take, because we would just take clients that wanted to grow. Like I had a construction company or a remodeling company here in Houston, and I have now a ton of remodeling companies because of that one, because I hadn't worked in that space. But basically what happened was, this was a little remodeling company. I didn't ask the right business questions. They built like 3 houses a year remodeled, or maybe 5 houses, but like you can count them on one hand. Okay.
Right.
And the reality is they just kind of did that. It was a, you know, small 2-3 person shop, subcontract stuff out, like wasn't a big deal. I didn't ask that question. I didn't know. Okay. So it was like kitchen remodeling. I think it was, no, it was whole home remodeling. Whole home remodeling. I like, so we did 2 years of SEO with them. They were ranked first for whole home remodeling in New Orleans, and we're in Houston. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So they were getting like crazy calls, and we were having to do stuff to like filter the calls. You got to select your location, automated
Right.
emails saying we don't service that area, like all these calls. Right. And like the business owner actually got mad at us, and was like, turn it off. And I was like, I can't. Like, I was like, I mean,
Right. Like
I was like,
SEO, it's just, it's not like a
I mean,
paid ad, you know?
well, we started, you know, we had to start deleting content, deleting pages that were ranking. Like literally I had to go backwards. And I mean, I still have a relationship with the account, but like they couldn't scale. Now they're at, I think 7 or 10 people or something in that range. I don't know with COVID, but, I mean, they couldn't scale as fast as we could deliver, and they didn't
Right.
serve that and how SEO works is it typically starts like based on where your location is or your geographic area. And then it kind of starts to span out like regionally or nationally or whatever. And so, yeah, so that like literally like businesses got to be efficient to be able to handle the
Right.
lead volume. Now, again, like it's based on search volume. So if there's not demand, Google or SEO or even paid ads, harvest is demand. If you have a product like, you know, my wife bought a freaking like a cat wheel, a giant like hamster wheel for cats. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, I don't know, Facebook got her, right? It's like these crazy little Facebook ads. But the
Right.
thing is, there was no demand for that. Like, you're not out there searching for giant cat wheel,
Right.
exercise wheel, right? Google SEO is not going to work because no one's looking for it,
Right.
right? So there's a difference between demand harvesting and demand generation. And
Right.
demand generation, Google's fantastic if there's a search volume. So when we bring on a client, we're running numbers, and then we're looking at conversion rates, like, you know, how many leads become, you know, like an appointment, how many appointments become a sale. Like we got to run all these kind of metrics to
Right.
make sure that the numbers work. And you know, usually like someone working with someone like you would have those numbers to come to us and say, hey, my conversions rate's this or whatever.
Right.
Once it gets to them,
Good data.
that good data, but it's almost like a math problem because the studies out there, like 33% of all traffic for a keyword. So if it's 1,000 people searching for that word, which that's easy to find on Google Keyword Planner or Uber Suggest or SEMrush or any of the different platforms, say it's 1,000 words and they're in first position, you could estimate that about 33% of that volume if you're in the first keyword position.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's 330 leads for that keyword. If you understand the commercial intent of that keyword, it's going to produce X number of leads, right? And so, and then you can look at keyword difficulty and where you're currently positioned to kind of figure out, for me, based on like doing this so long, how long it's going to typically take. And I usually give people like we do like quarterly campaigns. So I was like, hey, we're going to hit this objective in this quarter, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it could be first month, it could be third month, but usually I give myself a little bit of wiggle room because I don't know exactly how the algorithm's going to react, but I can predict easily based on the quarter that we can hit certain metrics. Or like if people are like, hey, I want to be in first position for this, I can look at a bunch of different factors and I can say, hey, that's probably going to take a year, right?
Well, look,
Like,
one second. I actually dive in a little bit more into
sure.
this. I mean, you know, because, you know, I think maybe, you know, we talked about the idea that like, well, and the truth is, and we didn't even make up to talk about this, that we should, you know, it'd be great to do like another show on this to talk about like, you know, Facebook or LinkedIn optimizing or SEO. I don't know if you work in that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
but just to kind of keep it for our limited time, limiting the discussion, like, Google's algorithm and how exactly they do things. I mean, it's a black box. Nobody on the outside, they're not like, putting out a manual every quarter. Like, hey, here's how to maximize your organic Google search results. So if you get to like, what are the main elements that go into that, I want my business to be in the top 3 positions, right? So what are the main factors or elements that are going into that soup pot of getting me that result?
Got it. Yeah. There's some great graphs out there if you Google the breakdown, but there's about 250 different ranking factors. And again, this is
let's focus on the top 3 to 5,
exactly.
I guess.
And that pie typically changes. And again, right, it's like a secret Coke formula. Like you don't really know what it is. These are just people like me putting out white papers or case studies of what they found to be true, right? But then it's a moving target because Google's constantly updating stuff, right? But what I can tell you is fundamentally, if you're doing what's best for the user or the person that's searching Google to find the information they're looking for, you're going to do pretty good, right? And Google's going to take care of you.
What do you mean by doing best? What does that mean?
Well, okay, so if your website takes 10 seconds to load, it's a bad user experience, right? So Google's not going to rank you on the first page if it takes 10 seconds to load, unless you're competing against companies that are taking 12 seconds or 15 seconds to load, and then you're the best of the worst, right? You know? So like really there is a Google webmaster guidelines, but again, it could be interpreted different ways. But it all goes back to user experience, right? And they're weighting more stuff on what happens when someone gets there. So it's like getting somebody to your website, and then really
how do they know what happens when I apologize for my
no worries.
naivete, but how does Google know what happens after they go onto your website? Is it just whether they go back to just hit the backspace button?
Well, that was a factor in the beginning when Facebook started eating up online time. Right, when Facebook launched, guess what launched right around the same time? Gmail, Chrome. Okay, you know how you're always logged into Chrome?
Oh, right. So if I'm using Chrome, Google knows.
Google knows everything.
Who did I see? Oh, so John Stossel had a thing on this recently. But anyway, So they use Chrome. Unless you're using Edge or Firefox, you're one of the small number of people, or Safari, I guess, if you're on an Apple device. Then.
Yeah, so it's aggregating data based upon people that are using Chrome to decide how people are interacting with that website. And also, it'll change the search results based on you specifically, right? And even like AdWords, like if you look, there's ads in your email box. That's done through AdWords. You can put ads in people's inbox based upon like there's different categories, their preferences. Like it's like there's so much that you can do, like programmatic ads.
I'm thinking about like backlinks and keywords and all that, but the stuff that the first couple things that came to your mind when I asked that question were about like page loading time and how long people stay on the site, meaning were they satisfied with what that your site offers them, whatever it is that they were looking for. I mean, so far those 2 factors is what you've said. So it's not, I'm sure the keywords and stuff is relevant too, but I mean, it's interesting that those were your first 2 things.
Well, those 2 things that you said are still very important. They were more important. The pie keeps changing. Okay. Like the percentage keeps changing from what I'm seeing of how effective things are. Like even like if you have the name of the keyword you're going for in the domain, right? Like that was a big factor years ago. Now it is still a factor, but just not as big, right? But really, the biggest thing you can do if you're like, trying to maximize cost, get your website on a cloud server, like on a super fast server, right? So like DigitalOcean's like what we do to kind of save money, but like Google Cloud, Google takes care of Google, or Azure for Microsoft, or Amazon, but putting it on the cloud is extremely important. Sorry, I got to plug in my
meaning what,
computer here.
As opposed to a private server, like in your office? Or
well,
as opposed to what?
those old school servers are important. Or if you control them, they're okay, but they're not as fast. Okay. And usually people are on a shared server, and a shared server has other people's websites on the shared server. So if there's traffic that goes to a website that has, well, if there's a lot of traffic that goes to another website, it will pull on your website and it will slow it down. Does that make sense? So, I mean, look, there's so there's a lot of factors. Also, how people set up websites on the back end. A lot of people can build websites, but they don't build it in the right structure that Google understands to be able to talk to it. There's categories, tags, there's custom posts. Like, Google wants to understand from an algorithmic standpoint, from a trust-based standpoint, what's important to you. So really your website structure, what's going on the back end, the technical SEO is super important. Also, people use a bunch of plugins.
Is a big part of your job when you start working with somebody to work with their web developer or host or whatever and just make sure they're on a better system to get better loading times, or work with their content to fix their content to make it more useful to people?
That's the easiest thing, right? That's where you would, I think, start. We do a pretty deep analysis before we work with clients. And I can tell you, most clients, it's like building a house and no one installed the pipes or the air conditioning, like anything on the interior is not done right. And we can remodel it sometimes, but sometimes you got to level the house and rebuild. So really it's starting with a good vehicle or a good car. And that's the structure of the website. I mean, backlinks, creating content, that's the gasoline, you know what I mean? But if the car, it's like trying to make a brick fly, you know what I mean? Like, so like you can do it, but it's a holistic approach, right? And so like a backlink from a high domain authority site's worth a bunch of, bad backlinks. And that will move the needle. But again, if you push that up there and then it doesn't have good mobile optimization,
right,
people are not clicking through, people are not staying on the page, Google's going to say, hey, this is not what the user's looking for. But here would be the framework. Like, throw it on, a faster server, make sure you have a quick load time. So there's good customer experience. Make sure mobile is optimized. Make sure that maybe there's like, a button every couple scrolls, like so people take action because Google looks at that. Have good videos, have good content that people will engage with. I mean, basically, it's more about the whole customer experience is really what SEO is, more than this trick or that trick or whatever. Like, all those things are a way of the past. Like, there's still some stuff out there that people can do, and it's called like black hat SEO. But man, if your website gets tagged or you get a manual review, you have to start all over again, like completely. So if you just do stuff the right way and you put in the work there, you're going to get the same results or better results because Google is going to reward you for doing that. So the only time you should use like a lot of these kind of tactics is, well, people that use them for like affiliates, right? So they're promoting some kind of product and it's like a churn and burn site, right? It's like a pump and dump in the stock market or something like that. But if you're building a business, you want to build it the right way. You want to have good content. You want to have that come out consistently. You want to have expert content. You want to have specific content, right? So another key point is what people do, like, is they're like, hey, here's all the stuff we do, right, on the homepage. And the homepage is a little different than the service pages, but people, or I'll give you a better example, Q&A, right? Most people have a question answer on their website and they have one page that's question answer. If it's about your company, so be it, but people have a question answer about the industry, right? Like, here are commonly asked questions, like in the mortgage industry or whatever, like here's some commonly asked questions. Well, people put those all on the same page. Well, when Google's looking at providing the absolute best answer for that specific question, if there's a bunch of other questions on that page, it dilutes the overall content. So each one of those pages or each one of those questions needs to actually be a separate page because you want to be really specific. It's like if you're trying to drink a drink and you go to like a one of those fountain machines and you click all Dr. Pepper, Sprite, Coke, whatever, and you put them all together and you take a sip of it and you go, what is this drink? Like, what is the most in this drink, right? That's what Google's trying to figure out because it's weighting it. So really it's about, like, remember, it's an algorithm and it's built by engineers, and engineers want things very cleanly structured. And also when you're searching for, people are searching more and more like long tail phrases because they want to answer to a very specific question. If you provide the best answer to that specific question, and then you have a good, like, website experience, it loads fast, they can see it on mobile, they're finding what they need, they're going to take action, whatever, then you're going to rank. Does that make sense? And then everything else that you're doing
for all this specific content, how do you, I guess maybe we'll make this the last question, because what I was really going to ask next was having to do with, like, okay, if you get to a top spot, how do you keep it? But basically what you're saying, I think, answers that.
Yeah.
And as a general idea, but how do you, but coming up with all that content, that specific content, that high value or expert content, it's a lot of work. How do you, I mean, and you as an outsider, I don't know, but I would assume you're not that well positioned to really create that for people. Like, how does that work that you can get all that content?
Yeah. So it really comes down to the front end planning and the strategy, right? Like, your strategy is so important, right? Like, what's your content calendar look like? What gaps are you filling in the blank? Like, if you're writing about a topic that you're adding no value to the mix, you're not going to rank. So, content marketing is a big component of SEO, and having that right content. I mean, I have a team of writers. We write for multiple different industries.
No offense about what I said. I just mean, like, like,
no.
Somebody that's in whatever the industry is, it's just it's a completely different than someone who's like researching it and trying to write an article.
Well, that's why so for our podcast, it's called The Unknown Secrets of Internet Marketing. BestSEOpodcast.com is the domain. I know that's kind of confusing, but we do consulting sessions for our listeners. We'll help do some audits or research, right, to help them get on their way. But at the agency, all clients coming in are required to do a workshop, and it's a half-day workshop. And unless they come to us and they got the buyer's journey, right, and they got the target personas, and they got the SWOT analysis, like you got to do fundamental business planning and also demographics, like who you're targeting, to figure out how to build that strategy. And then you fold into a keyword strategy and keyword difficulty of what you want to go after. And then you build a roadmap for, okay, we're going to go after this first, and then here's the milestone. Here are going to be the deliverables. Here's what we're going to do. So we got to build all that on the front end, and it's a collaborative process with every business, right? And so, unfortunately, like, people want to just say, hey, just take care of it.
Yeah.
Like, we can do that because I can look at commercial intent. Like, if people are bidding more on certain keywords, I know that those keywords are important. And then I can go, here's what I think the strategy is. Tell me if that's right. Usually they have like an idea of the keywords they want to rank for. Sometimes I'll give you another example. A client that's actually still a client, they sell cars, used cars. And he absolutely was adamant that right out now was a search term that people search for, like right out now. And I go, I don't think people are searching for that. Well, we did a workshop and we were looking on Google, and I'm like, dude, there's like no search volume for right out now.
I don't know what right out now even means.
I don't know. And then I go, but in-house financing, right? In-house financing, vehicle or car or whatever the extension term is, there was a ton of volume on. And so I actually had to show him the data. And here's the thing, I would say like an SEO strategist, that's what people call me. I'm a data analyst, right? Like, I know a lot of best practices. I understand how the algorithm works. I've worked in a lot of different industries, but ultimately, I'm working with the client, and I'm comparing what they're saying against data, and it's a feedback loop,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like even like with AdWords, really good at, my team's really good at AdWords, but when we start out, you got to negative out a lot of keywords. You got to prune, you got to talk to the client to make sure, hey, are these the right type of leads? Like, and so you got to tweak stuff. So it's like multiple iterations.
Mm-hmm.
But it really takes client engagement, and it takes kind of that full cycle. Now there's goals and different things. Like there's tools like CallRail where we can track phone calls. We can see if like it's a good phone call, and we can go further and further to that sales process. Actually, a really interesting piece of data is, I think it's like 85 or 86% of somebody, but by the time they pick up the phone and call you, is through the sales process already, right? Like, so when people go to a car lot, like today, they're like, give me this model, give me this color. Do you have any in stock? And I want it between this price. And the salesperson's like, hey, how's your day? What are you looking for? Like, no, by the time you walk in a car lot, you're ready to buy a car. You're done. Okay. Right. And that's the work of the marketing component and the customer journey before they even get there. So you don't even know people selecting to call you because they got a couple other options and you're down to the finalist, or you don't even know what you missed out on, right? So really your online experience is and you want to look at it holistically, like from a digital marketing standpoint. SEO's absolutely the core of it. Okay. And SEO is becoming this broader term of what fits into that, but it's really about your online marketing experience is really what you need. Now you can run ads to a specific page, or you can do SEO on a specific page, and kind of rising tide lifts all boats, but you can get that page to rank. But if that page doesn't have the right content, like people don't come to me and go, I want to rank on the first page. Like, that's not what they come to me. They go, I want more business. You know what I mean? Like, I want new customers. That's what they're really asking me. Yeah. And that's really my goal, is not, oh, I got you on the first page, congratulations. It's like, what did that first page do for me? And so I got to look at the full experience. And again, that's what Google's looking at too, is like, if people are going to continue to use the search engine, they got to find what they're looking for. Right. And so that's the guiding star that everything has to be working towards.
Right. I mean, look, I mean, the conversation has definitely been very enlightening for me in terms of, maybe that stuff that was more relevant a couple of years ago that I had heard more about. I mean, loading pages and all that stuff also, but just understanding that, like, that's really, content is king, and and the experience being super, super important, and obviously that other stuff too. But okay, so look, I think we got a better understanding of what's involved and what goes into it. And, would love to, maybe we should understand or talk more one day about LinkedIn or Facebook or other things in terms of maximizing there too. But it's super helpful. I really appreciate you coming on, and thanks for joining us today and sharing all this info.
Awesome, Ben. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. Thank you for coming on, and we'll see everybody else on the other side. Thanks.
You're listening to Win-Win, an entrepreneurial community with your host, Ben Wolf.